Stocks posting another day of small gains on some continued earnings optimism and economic reports. Deborah Kostroun has the latest from the New York Stock Exchange. Deborah.
Thanks a lot, Pimm. Yes, and also a lot of people talking about the March low that we saw in the S&P back in 2009. The intraday low back then was 666, and in this almost two-year span, we have seen the S&P double, and of course, closing out today's session at 1340. And what we're looking at, if you take a look at the closing low, that was March 9th, 2009. The S&P is actually up 98% since that time, so a pretty good return if you put your money in right at that very moment. But still, the S&P still needs to rise 17.5% to get back to the peak that we saw back in October of 2007. So we certainly have come a long way, but still maybe a ways to go. Now, the thing that is really kind of helping to move this market higher certainly has been here for several weeks, and that is the earnings picture, also our economic reports. Today, we got some positive manufacturing data, and traders saying that there's definitely this economic momentum because consumers are back, businesses are certainly more optimistic, and that manufacturing is expanding. And also earnings have been very good, and so all of that certainly is good news for the stock market, Pimm.
Now, Deborah, with protesters clashing with police in countries such as Bahrain and Yemen and Libya, it brought back many concerns about unrest in the Middle East and the effect on the price of oil, which was up today.
Yes, in fact, crude oil shooting up today almost 2% as we're talking about more unrest in the Middle East, and that really caused that spike in prices. The big concern is the Suez Canal, and certainly was when we were talking about Egypt, especially as now we have Iran sending about two warships there. And that's really because the Suez Canal, about 2.5% of the global oil output moves through Egypt and through the Suez Canal. So energy stocks actually the biggest gainers on the day, as we did see that big gain in crude oil as well. And a quick mention about American Express. It was the biggest drag in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This was after the Federal Reserve saying that the central bank cannot commit itself on a final ruling on capping debit card swipe fees. And so there is a chance that, and there is a lot of concern that this could result in some changes in regulation and possibly some changes in the market. And so one of the reasons that American Express down more than 2% today. Back to you, Pimm.
Thank you very much. Deborah Kostroun reporting from the New York Stock Exchange.